Well, hello. First up, I would like to just again say thank you for all the support I've received over the last, I think, only 2 weeks. You guys are amazing. Not only do I love watching all of your videos, and I'm so appreciative that you're watching mine, it's keeping me really motivated for cross stitching. It's something I love to do anyway, but it sort of has in the past taken a bit of a back burner and not been a priority, so I'm glad it is again. Today I'm going to show you my whip and also go through and give you some tips and tricks that I've found for stitching one colour at a time. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to be as crazy as me, but I thought I'd go through what I've learnt anyway. I'll start with my whip, and that way if stitching a colour at a time isn't of any interest to you, you can just shut off the video as soon as I've shown you where I'm up to and stop wasting your time. I think I've been working on this for a week exactly. I started last Friday. I haven't stitched anything today yet. I had my little princess home sick, and yeah, it's just, I didn't want to bring it out, especially when she threatened that she needed to throw up, so it stayed away. She's in bed at the moment, so taking the opportunity to record this video. I know you shouldn't compare yourself to other people because, you know, there's different circumstances, different stitching times, just there's too many factors, but I'm not actually sure if what I've managed to achieve in a week is what someone else might manage to achieve in a week. I don't know if I've got less because I'm counting more, but then I'm not switching threads. I'm just interested to see how slow I stitch, pretty much. I think I spend more time packing up and putting away because I do it on my breaks than I actually spend stitching, but I'll stop rambling again and I'll show you. I'll start with a full view just so you've got some idea, and then I'll get closer. So this is what I've done. You can see I've done quite a bit up the top corner because I started at page 1 and that's where it started. I've gotten just over halfway through page 3, and I've gone and sort of coloured in, which I'll go into later, and I don't actually think I need this colour again until below it. So I've almost finished the top row, or the top, I'll just show you. So if you can see there, that's about page 1. It goes 2 and 3, I think. Can't wait till my camera cord arrives. Okay, this way. I've got, just looking at the pattern, a little bit more to do here, but not too much. So yeah, that's, this way. So that's what I've done. I am still showing daily whip progress photo things on my Instagram account, which I'll link below, but yeah, it's really coming together. I've gone through my first skein of the colour. I'm not sure if it wasn't a full skein to begin with because I have used it from my stash, but only the little label left. Yeah, so I don't know if it was maybe not a full skein to begin with. The pattern does recommend 2 skeins. I also don't know if I'm going to go through more because I don't always get to use the whole amount I pull out, because if it's only one stitch, I've got, you know, 30 centimeters of thread that can only do one stitch. But yeah, so that's where I'm up to. It's hard, you can't actually see what it's going to be, and I don't think the camera's picking up the gorgeousness of this colour. It's DMC 550, and just, yeah, pure coincidence and luck that the symbol I happened to pick was my favourite colour. But I'm really enjoying it, and I will be thrilled when I'm finished the first colour, because it's sort of, I guess I see them as mini finishes, not as exciting as like the beer bottles or things that you can actually see as a finish, but I know that I'm one colour down and getting closer, and those finishes do come a lot faster as the project goes on, which I'm about to sort of explain why. So that's my whip. If that's all you wanted to see, thank you for watching. I still appreciate it, and I will see you next week. Otherwise, I will go through my one colour at a time. I kind of broke my own rule big time. It's pretty much my most important rule, but I was excited and I wasn't really thinking. Stitching in one colour is obviously quite different to stitching little blocks at a time. I'm not sure what the actual difference, if there is any, would be. I think it came about when I started my tiger. If you remember that, I'll insert a photo here. I wasn't stitching one colour at a time for that, but I didn't like the blockishness of it. It just didn't work with my brain, and there's nothing wrong with it. I actually really like seeing WIPs that do that because you can actually see the project grow, whereas my method, you sort of only see what it is as it, is nearly finished. So yeah, the first cross stitch I did, I did block at a time, and like as I said, there was nothing wrong with it. I think what turned me off doing that is I sort of had that inclination anyway. If I was working in the top corner and I just happened to see on the pattern that it was sort of on the other side, I'd just take it across. So there was no consistency with the way I worked. I guess I was trying to do block, but my brain was trying to do colour at a time, and it just made a complete and utter mess, and I just didn't like the way it turned out. So when I started my second one, which was the flower, I decided to do one colour at a time, not consciously because of my natural inclination to do it that way, but I think I did it as a money saver because if you watched my first video, you know Samuel got to all of my threads, and when I picked it up again while he was still quite young, before I had Elise, I didn't want to get all the threads I needed and have sort of a repeat performance, so I only bought one thread just to see if he still had that destructive nature about him, and I think it worked so much better for me, so I just continued it over the years, because even when I'm not stitching, my brain is just constantly working to sort of figure out solutions for things that I don't even know are problems. I've come up with some sort of ways that make it most productive, because it can be quite slowing with all the counting, but again, you don't lose time switching colours, so I'm saving it there, so it might actually, even out. But that's not why I do it. It's not trying to save time, it's just the way my mind works. I'm sorry if I keep rambling. I did mean to sort of set up more of a script and have it more structured, but so many things have been happening, and I was close to not recording, but that would have affected me more. So I'm just going to wing it, and I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive me for the complete ramblingness of it, and I'll try and keep it at least under half an hour. Okay, first thing I do when I get a pattern is buy all the threads. It's obviously nowhere near necessary for the way I stitch, but I like to have everything ready. It's really hard for me to start a project and not have everything, which has gotten me not into trouble, but I try and be careful about what hobbies I pick up, because it is just my nature to get everything I need, and if I buy all the things and then find out I don't like it, it's quite an expensive lesson. So yeah, first thing I do, buy all the threads. Not necessary for stitching one at a time, so I don't know why I told you that. And then what I normally do is get the floss usage, which has been in every pattern I've come across, because they've been Heaven and Earth designs and my own created patterns, and I put them in Excel, type out all the numbers. There may be an easier way, but that's the way I do it. And so I type the colour thread and how many stitches there are. Then, with the wonder of Excel, I order it from greatest number of stitches to least number of stitches, and I have done this without Excel, and it is possible. It's just very time consuming. You go through and you just order it manually, but Excel is definitely a lot faster, especially with a Heaven and Earth design. And so I put it into a table, which I have here. I haven't hole punched it or put it away yet, but hopefully you can see. So I've got the title up the top here, and then I've just got the floss number I put first, just so I can see what I'm working on, the number of stitches it's got, just, you know, for curiosity and because I did the effort to put it in, and then I've got a checkbox to tick it off when I've completed it, because I like checking things off. Now, as I said, I normally do this. I was so excited to start Fairy Bubbles, I forgot, you know, my most important, this is probably my most important tip. And I was just insanely lucky that the symbol I picked does happen to have quite a large number of stitches. Now, it is supposed to be my 11th colour that I work on. Not my first, but, you know, I'll take 11th over 90th any day. And the reason that this is my most important tip, it's easier to find. What I do when I am stitching, I go through and I colour in the symbols that I'm going to be stitching, just because trying to look at an entire pattern when you're stitching and you could have, you know, one stitch and then not another one till here, that's too much, and it's too easy to miss things. So I actually colour in all of the stitches that I'm planning on stitching in that colour, obviously, and then highlight it when I'm done. So if you have a look at it, the largest number of stitches, hopefully it will focus, is 6,856. That's better. And the least number of stitches, if I can do it without seeing, is 17. Now, trying to find 17 stitches in a 24-page pattern, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. You will have an insane amount of counting to do to get from one stitch to the other. The chance of missing it is just so high. And, you know, 17, okay, maybe you can count to 17 and make sure you've got all of them. But if you've got sort of, you know, 100 or 1,000, they're still going to be really hard to find, but you're not going to count every one you colour in. So yeah, my biggest tip, do the colour with the most stitches first. It's easier to find. It's going to make it so much easier when you're doing, you know, as you continue stitching, because you can use that as, I guess, a vantage point. There's got to be another word for that, but I can't think. Yeah, so it's easier in every sense of the word just to do one with the most stitches first. And it also makes you feel good because you've got a lot of progress early, and, you know, you've got more to stitch with than, you know, 17. Because can you imagine 17 upside down? Can you imagine trying to find 17 stitches in this? It's like, sorry if I'm continuing to harp on about it, but it really is my most important tip, to do the thread with the most stitches first. Thankfully, someone was smiling at me and gave me something with, you know, a decent amount of stitches. 550, as I said, it was supposed to be the 11th colour, and it's got 3,702 stitches. So it's a decent amount, but it's almost half of what, you know, the most has. So when I'm finished this colour, I will be going and starting with my actual order. I'm not going to show this too closely because I don't want, you know, copyrighted issues, but I will show you a close-up of my frog because I created that pattern, so there's no way that you can sort of find the symbols online because they're just not online. Okay, so hopefully no glare. So you can see down here, hopefully, I don't want to get too close, that I've got sort of purple highlighted regions. That's my colouring in. And then up here, the darker ones, they're not actually a darker looking symbol. They are me going over and highlighting that I've completed it. So if you look at page 2, obviously everything there is completed. And then I've been going through, so you can't even see, I think there is 2, 4, 6 threads on page 5, so that's why you do the most number of stitches first, and then it's not until page 7, I think, that we get to have colour again, and that's going down. So yeah, I colour it in first. If you do use this app, thank you Aish so much, Goodreader. I'm just going to random amount here. Okay, totally zoomed in. So you can go in, and I actually highlight with purple first, as you can see, and then when I've finished it, I go over it with green, which gives me this really dark grey colour. I love that you can go over, and even if you couldn't, and then if it replaced the colour, that would still be fine, because one colour would be colouring in that you have to do, and another would be ones that you've done. When I was using paper chart, my two best friends, a pencil and a highlighter. Because my OCD, they had to be the same colour, but you know, you can mix and match. Now, again, with my biggest rule, I lost the floss usage chart with this pattern. The program is ancient, so I was not able to retrieve it, so I'm now just looking and I guess getting an eye for what I think has the most, and I'm nearing the end anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I'm not sure if you can see, the sun's decided to go behind a cloud, I think. Up in the top corner here, it's not highlighted, but it's not just white. That's me colouring it in. So it's enough of a difference that I can see them when I'm looking at an overall pattern, even if it's just one, like in the middle of something over here, but it's obviously not highlighted. So that's, yeah, that's what I do, and you can sort of see that I'm getting close to the end. It's only a 4-page pattern because it is quite small. I do want to finish it because, you know, I am pretty close, but you know, fairy bubbles, I'm very obsessed with that at the moment. Something I have learnt with this design that wasn't previously a rule, gridding. Oh my goodness, why have I never done it before? This is a fairly small design. It's, you know, 4x6-ish. It's not too bad. And because of the way I stitch, it's not like I had to count from one side to the other. But to be honest, with when it's like this, my golden rule was count 3 times, stitch once. I would count initially, leave the needle where it was, get a second needle, and go through and count it again 2 more times, and then if obviously it got to the same amount, I would then stitch it. While I think that's not a bad rule to apply anyway to prevent frogging. Sorry, again, I'm tired. I just think if I had a grid when I was doing this project, I'd be done. It has sped up my stitching an insane amount. I'm still very careful about the way I count. I don't want to get complacent, but when you look at it, obviously patterns have very distinctive 10 by 10 grids marked. So when I pick it up, if I want to stitch sort of down here, if they weren't there, I'd know that from these stitches here, I'd count 2 grids down and 1 across, and then I'd know where to stitch. And that's, like it has, I've used it with a couple of the lonely stitches up the top corner. I will be gridding every project from now on. The way I grid does, of course, take forever. I do individual crosses. I don't think it's something that really needs to be shown, but if you want me to sort of show my process gridding, because I do have to finish it off, I can record it. If there is any interest in watching me grid a couple of squares, I can do that. The reason I did 1 square at a time, or 1 stitch at a time, you know, essentially, rather than sort of weaving it in and out, I wanted to be able to pull them out as I went without risking them pulling out further on. So if, especially because I do work on the entire piece at once, so I didn't want to, you know, take one out here, which hasn't actually come out. Is there one here? Where's one that's come out? So I didn't want to take one out here because I touched the grid line and then have it pull out over here, so then this entire row I don't have the grid. It's taken a long time, but I think it's been worth it. I haven't actually had them pull out like I was concerned about initially. I have been very conscious of it though, so I think next time I will still knot them lightly just for peace of mind, but they're pretty sturdy and I think it's worth it. Like, I guess depending on how you stitch, it may be a waste of time for you. If you're starting in one corner and working it down, you obviously don't really need to see where it's going, but if you do parking method, it might be helpful to know where the next stitch is. And definitely, I have definitely found that one colour at a time, it's worth it. A few lessons I've learnt from this project, not only that gridding is amazing, knotting I mentioned, use a monofilament thread. I wish I had have seen Amanda's video before I actually started gridding, because it's something I'd never done before. I just picked up DMC thread that is completely different to everything else in the pattern, so there's no bright orange, so it would obviously stand out no matter what was there. I pierce it so many times, so I think you see there, I don't know how well it shows, but that, you know, it's just pierced and messy, and it can be hard when I'm trying to pull it out from under other stitches, because not only do I stitch over it, which I wish there was a way for me not to, if I knot it I might be able to cut it shorter and not leave it, or the tails, I'll do a test run for that. But yeah, not only do I stitch over it, which is a pain in itself trying to pull it out, but when I stitch over it I pretty much always pierce it, so I've got to try and pull little threads, and it's messy. So I'm actually in search of a monofilament thread. I did visit my local needle crafting store. I am so lucky, I've got one within walking distance. Like, I don't walk, one, because it is freezing cold at the moment and I'm a sook, but yeah, it is within walking distance. So I am very lucky in that, because needle crafting store. I'm on the hunt for a monofilament thread because they just didn't have any there. Well, I tell a lie. They had, it was white or clear, but I want something that's going to stand out. So I'm going to do a bit of searching. I really don't like buying online because postage is horrible. I do prefer to obviously support local businesses, but if they don't have something, then I'm not going to go without. But postage, I don't know if it's everywhere or just Australia. It's horrendous. I often buy in bulk just to make the postage worth it, but there's not really a lot of things that I want to buy because I've got most of everything I need. Amanda did mention that if I can't find a nice monofilament thread, I can use fishing line. I haven't ruled out that possibility, but I want, again, it to stand out, so I'm going to go to the, I don't know what it is, fishing store. It's BCF, I don't know if you've got it there, Boating, Camping, Fishing, and I'm going to see if they have anything there. But yeah, the last couple of days I've been stuck at home organising things, so I haven't been able to go out shopping. I'm not going to change it on this whip, not only because of my OCD, like I can't obviously do something different down the bottom, but I'm not going to go back and regrid everything else I've done. It took me a long time, like a long time, and I have actually found a quick way of gridding, so within my method. So that sort of says something. I'm just going to deal with it for the rest of this, not only because I don't want to waste the time that I spent on it, but because I don't even want to stop stitching to be able to finish the gridding, let alone redoing the gridding. I am so excited to be stitching this, and I'm so excited that others seem to be excited about my work in progress. I think it's getting a little hard to share on Instagram because I am doing all of it. Like, obviously by the time I finish the first colour, it's going, you're going to barely see it. So I have, I did ask the question, and when you can sort of see a difference, I will be posting 2 photos a day, a close-up of what I'd been working on that day and an overall view. So if there's just sort of one stitch that I'd done in an area, I am going to use it at my discretion. If I don't, like, I'm going to be posting a photo every day, but if I can't see a difference in the overall design, especially once I'm finished this colour, if there's only, you know, 5 stitches on one page, I'm not probably going to share the overall design, because you won't see those 5 stitches in something that's so small and zoomed out. I will be sharing something every day though, so there's no fear about that. I am going to try and organise my day so I have got a decent amount to work on my cross stitch, but I am going to put sort of a little disclaimer out there. I'm not going to make as much progress as I have this week every week. I've got a couple of other obsessions. Why not? I love my Filofaxes, which will be sort of coming to this channel probably October, December. I'll be doing videos on those and my setups. So I do need to spend some time actually setting those up. I'll go into it more in those videos because it may not be something that interests you. November will pretty much be a complete wipeout. I will stitch every day because like I have set myself an August challenge, stitch every day, and I'm stitching quite a bit because it is my challenge. But November, while I will stitch something, a little bit, I'm going to be focused on my writing. I take part in NaNoWriMo every year. Not only do I want to win for the 5th year in a row, I'm the ML of the region, so I have a lot of organising to do around Nano. In November, my writing does have to take priority. Now, I say have, have to loosely. It's my choice, but it's important to me. So in November, writing is my priority. So I will still be stitching, but the updates won't be as exciting. And unless I've got something, I guess, specific to show you, I don't know if I'll continue weekly updates because it'll just be boring. But I will see how I get along and how I do. Maybe by November I would have given up fighting and I'll have a second work in progress that's more of a quick stitch. Got a friend again. Are you going to stay in my video? Hey. So I'm sorry, I do have another long video. I will edit it down as much as possible and still have it make sense. Next week, because I have had a few requests, I will show you how I make my thread storage card. And if you want any more information or sort of more detailed information, I will have my corresponding blog post linked in the description, and it will be able to sort of go, I guess, more in depth and show you my step-by-step process a little more clearly than I can. What you hiding? Than I can in my video. There will always be a corresponding blog post, and the link will always be down below. So depending if I'm actually sharing a method of something or whether it's just a whip, it will have varying degrees of detail, but it will always be there. So I think I've covered everything. If you've got any specific questions about stitching one colour at a time, please let me know. I hope I'm not the only one out there that does it this way. I know I'm different, but I didn't think I'd be that different, especially with how many stitches are sort of coming out of the woodworks now. But I hope I've answered some questions and given you a little bit of information that's at least a little bit interesting. I will leave it at that. Sorry for this video being horrendously long and me not actually saying anything clever or important. But I have a cat, that makes everything better, right? YouTube loves cats. Okay, I will see you next week. Bye guys.